seconds to log into my computer so we can get proceeding. Now it's my fault.
Where are you from? Sun River, Montana.
Okay.
Family immigrated in Italy to work at the Anaconda smelter, the highest paying jobs in the world. I was born there. My dad worked for the smelter for 27 years. For the record, the time is 2:03. We're going back on the record. And Ms. Pappas, you can call your next witness. Proceed with the witness you have already. We weren't finished. Did you have housekeeping that you wanted to talk about, or would you just go right to the witness?
Again, a gentle reminder, it's 2:05 p.m. We are able to stay past our 5 p.m. mark. However, like for everybody in the room, would like to finish by about 5. I believe we likely should be able to complete that, but we shall proceed and check back in with that.
Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you, Commissioner Kirby. Good afternoon, Mike. When we left off, we were discussing some of the testimony Robert Wood and Corey Efta had provided earlier. Is that correct? Is it fair?
Yes.
I'm sorry, yes. I forgot about you again. I'm sorry.
Is it fair to say you take a different view of some of the statements they made?
Yes,
Is it fair to say that you disagree with some of the statements they made?
yes,
Do you believe G&G operates unsafe vehicles on the road?
I do not.
We've had testimony over the past few days of G&G customers saying they had issues with their billing. Do you recall that testimony?
I do,
Do you want to address that?
yes. We have been made aware of a couple of issues. Quite honestly, some of the information here was enlightening for me. We had identified in our phone system that we had a black hole, if you will, of voicemail that was going into the accounting system, which we resolved here in the last 30 days, not only impacting certainly our residents here, but other areas as well, which we've addressed. I have some questions in regard to some of the comments that have been made by the individuals here in regard to some of the billing things that I wasn't aware of, and so I can't speak to fact or fiction or otherwise. But they've actually, in my notes, I've reported any thing that's been brought up in regard to billing issues. We have made a couple of changes to local billing over the years. At one time, we moved everybody to quarterly billing, just because of the cost of generating the invoices and doing all those things. We, over the last few years, moved back to monthly invoicing to make it easier on folks. We do have some that prepay for the year and as a technical issue that we're resolving, we do generate a monthly invoice to those that are prepaid. Even though the amount due is 0, they still receive it. And so we're looking at how we sort of turn that off to resolve that. But there are a couple of other issues, and like I said, I sent a very lengthy email identifying each person so we can review all those and see if there's some other things that we can do to make improvements.
Do you know how many billing statements G&G sends out every month?
It's a lot.
Company-wide?
I honestly, I could answer that question honestly, other than it's a lot.
Okay, we talked about that Baker has 125 root customers for garbage route.
Yes.
So those folks are getting a bill?
Yes, and I mean, as an example, some of our other garbage route customers, I think we have 1,000 of those, plus our other roll-off customers and porta potty customers and that, so a large amount of invoices about every month. So, but we take any feedback we get very seriously. If there's something we can improve on, do better. And so we can do better. There's things I see here that I have questions on, so.
Okay, and there was some testimony about issues with Corey after not checking matters as done. Do you think that could have led to billing errors?
I do, absolutely, yeah. I have concerns about the fact that, I mean, we certainly don't want to be hitting people with invoices late in the game because Corey didn't close out orders, but yes, we have a process within our software that as orders are completed by the drivers, then that essentially kicks over to our accounting, so that generates an invoice. And if those weren't closed, there's the risk that a number of those invoices weren't generated.
And do you believe that the new driver using the software will help address this?
Yes,
You think it has helped address this?
it already has helped address it.
Is it G&G's intention to overcharge for services?
No.
You've been in this business here about 10 years. Based on your experience here, is there enough business in Fallon, Webo, and Carter counties to keep two garbage haulers afloat without causing either cost increases or decreases in maintenance?
No.
If Southeast Garbage were to obtain a permit and half of G&G's rural route customers went to Southeast, would you be able to keep up your rural route at the rates you charge?
No.
Would you have to increase them,
We would have to increase them.
potentially substantially?
Potentially, we'd have to evaluate it, but yes, we would absolutely have to increase them. I don't know what that would look like yet, but.
It would depend on where people go, right?
Yeah, like how much volume there is, et cetera, so.
I don't believe I have further questions for you, Mike. Thank you.
You may cross your
Thank you.
witness.
Good afternoon, Mr. Desmond. Are you required to file annual reports with the PSC?
Yes, we are.
And have you filed all of the annual reports that are required to be filed?
Yes, we have.
And so if there are reports that could not be located at the PSC, you would say that that is the PSC's fault for losing those?
All I can say is we filed our reports.
And so are you the one who signs the reports?
Yes,
Are you the one that prepares the reports?
or not.
But you do review those prior to signing for accuracy?
Yes.
The new number you've provided for this service area revenue is 384,000, is that right?
That's correct.
Does the residential garbage route for Fallon County, is that operating in the red?
I don't know that I can speak to specific EBITDA numbers by division or by service. I can speak to the gross revenue numbers.
From the sounds of it and your testimony and the rates that you're charging and all of the expenses that you've listed for those two very expensive pieces of equipment just to facilitate this residential route, it sounds like the expenses are quite high
Yes, they are.
with a fairly low volume. Is that
Yes.
on your 2023 annual report? How much do you list for vehicle repair and service?
Again, I don't know that I know specifically. I think that we had discussed that we were around $30,000, I think, for repairs and maintenance.
And so how much did you spend on vehicle parts for 2023?
I don't know that.
And so would it surprise you that you put 0 in both of those categories on your annual report?
We wouldn't necessarily split out parts, as the parts would be a component of the repair as we go to third-party shops primarily.
And so if you put 0 for vehicle repair, that surprise you?
Potentially, yes.
And so if the PSC provides a category for those things and you put that you didn't have any expenses, that's probably not properly filling out the report that they're asking you for.
It would not be completed.
And for, I was unable to locate 2022's annual report, but in 2021's, would it surprise you that you listed $0 for vehicle repair and service and $0 for vehicle parts?
I think that as far as our allocation, first of all, to answer your question, yes. As far as our allocation of our COGS and SG&A that we would allocate to the specific P&L here, I think that, yeah, we primarily are reporting what our top line gross revenue is.
But they are asking you for your expenses as well and broken down on their form in this manner, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And again, it's my understanding that PSC cannot locate 3 out of the last 5 years of reports. But going back to 2018, which is the report that's available before that, again, you have 0 in vehicle repairs and $0 in vehicle parts. That, how you've instructed your employees to fill out this form?
No.
So according to the PSC reports, you've not spent any dollars in repairs or vehicle parts or service since 2018. Is that correct?
I don't believe it to be correct.
Are you using the equipment in this service area to serve the non-regulated revenue stream?
As I mentioned before, we may do some business in the Rain or Marmouth area and a little bit in the beach area, but other than that, it's in this market.
So beach would not be regulated,
Correct.
and Marmouth and
Correct.
that would not be regulated.
Yeah. So, but everything else would be in the regulated area.
Okay. And so if a piece of equipment were pulled to Glendive, it's in the regulated revenue reported to the PSC, but not included in that $384,000 number that you say is limited to just the service area.
Correct. So the way we measure the revenue is based on where the account services occur. I was not necessarily with a customer's domicile, because we certainly have customers that are based in Houston and other areas, but where the activity occurs.
Yeah, understand. I think you testified you had 20 years in the trucking transportation industry. Did you have a CDL?
I did not.
What role did you have in the transportation industry?
Well, I started my career as a dispatcher and worked my way through into operations management, and then was vice president of operations. At that time, we ran about 1,200 over the road trucks nationwide.
There is a G&G office in Baker, is that correct?
Yes.
Is there anyone there?
Primarily, it's just our driver operationally right now.
And when they're out making deliveries and whatnot, there would be no one there then?
At this moment, no.
Do you know whether, I think you testified that strike that, please. Certificate that you hold allows you to do residential in Webo and Baker and Ecolog, is that correct? But you do not do those services within those municipalities, right?
Correct.
You testified that you have 2 trucks currently, a residential with arm trucks for
Yes.
this area.
We have 2.
And one of those, I think you testified, was the city's truck that you just purchased, is that right?
That's correct.
And that's a 2007 Freightliner,
I believe so.
and your bid was $7,500 for that?
Yes. I believe that's public record.
And what is the other unit number on the truck that is here? Do you have a unit number assigned to that truck?
We do, but I don't know that I know what it is.
Do you know whether unit 9 is permanently out of commission?
I believe that one is out of commission.
And where is that located currently?
I believe it may be still in the shop here, I'm not sure, but yeah, it's requires an excessive amount of repairs more than the value of the truck.
And what shop is that at?
As I'm not sure what shop is that. I believe it's here in the shop, but I'm not sure where.
That be at J.A. Miller Truck Repair?
Possibly.
Do you know if you have any outstanding bills with J.A. Miller Truck Repair?
Well, if that's the shop, I believe there may be a bill there for that truck for repairs that were conducted on it that were authorized. And it's in dispute, so I'm not at liberty to talk about it.
You testified briefly just about the invoices and billing. Do your invoices reflect any past due balances or payments made on account?
I believe they're accounted for on a statement. I don't know if they're accounted for on the invoice. I couldn't speak to that directly.
So the statement or invoice that the customer receives for February is one number, and then they'll receive an invoice for March, and you're not sure whether February's dealings are carried forward? at all?
I believe the invoice would be for whatever the current activity is. The statement would then reflect if there are any past due amounts that have been paid.
And so how often do you send out the statements that reflect the total amount owed?
I don't know what the frequency is that those are sent out as to what the, if somebody's outside of terms, whether that's based on contact or otherwise. So they may be only sending those out at the time when we're in the midst of a collections process to get past bills paid.
And the garbage truck that Corey wrecked, I think in 2022.
Okay.
Was that turned into insurance?
No.
And so you recognize not everything has to be turned into insurance to take care of it, correct?
We make those decisions as to whether we're going to fund that or make a claim.
And you consider that determination in deciding how much insurance to carry, don't you?
No, it's has nothing to do with one or the other.
Is it your intention to stop providing services to this service area if the Southeast garbage application is granted?
No.
Did you tell Mr. Singer that you personally would be at his residence the Wednesday after you spoke with him?
No, I didn't.
And have you followed up with Mr. Singer since the delivery of his new garbage can from your company?
I have not. Only our conversation was that if we did not satisfy that situation, that he had my personal phone number and to call me directly.
And the new driver, Wes, was not trained on the e-collector route before he started?
I'm not sure of his complete training on location of where the container yard is there. So obviously we had a pin drop and lat long to our orders. Now whether he has a newer driver made an error and picked up a different location, I can't speak to.
Sure.
So.
Is it your opinion that the equipment has been sound for the entire time that you've been the CEO?
Define sound.
In good working order?
We run safe equipment. Our drivers are not in jeopardy at any time. We run later model equipment, or older model equipment, I should say, as we obviously want to manage our costs and do those things. So we deem that we'll make the repairs that are necessary to ensure that the trucks are safe on the road and for our drivers as well as any citizens.
You said that you use third-party companies to make your repairs and service for this area?
Yes.
When did you strike that? Have you ever provided maintenance and service locally yourself?
I'm trying to understand your question.
Your testimony to me made it sound like now we use third party for repairs and maintenance. At some point you maybe didn't and did it in-house.
Yeah, no, we primarily use third-party maintenance repair. I know there's some testimony in regard to in-house that we attempted to do. But what we found, unfortunately, is that obviously with the amount of business here, we couldn't justify having a mechanic on staff to support. So we tried to domicile that individual in another location and bring them in and out of the market to do those repairs and maintenance. And quite frankly, we weren't, in my opinion, getting in with enough frequency that met what those needs were. So we continued with using third-party locations.
When did that individual relocate and exclusively you focus back on the third party?
It's probably been 4 or 5 years, I think, since we've had that person on staff.
And I think you testified that you use rolling rubber and I guess you said Northside closed and rolling rubber. So does rolling rubber do your oil changes?
They do.
And do they send you invoices directly to the Dickinson office to be paid?
We have a PO system, so they're pre-authorized with a PO number, and then so that expense is then logged into our accounting system. So they would email into our accounts payable at garbage.com.
And so you can tell when those services are happening based on the invoices that they provide you.
And based on, and the PO request. Yeah,
Okay.
but same thing.
Yeah, okay. Jackie, yes, based on your last name. Papez, thank you. Ms. Papez asked you about your 5-star reviews on Google. Or I'm sorry, yeah, you have 5 stars is what your testimony was.
Okay, yes.
And did you look to see that it was based on 3 reviews, all of which are over 4 years old?
The question was with how many 5-star the reviews, not the timing or frequency or how many.
And are you aware of your Google review in the Dickinson market?
I know.
It's right underneath. Would it surprise you that it's a 1.6 review, 1.6 stars in the Dickinson market?
Objection relevance doesn't go to any regulated industry here.
It's the same company that we're talking about. He's the same CEO. He serves the markets, and I think it is relevant to being able to provide the service in one market versus another.
She wants to talk about the other markets. We haven't talked about his ability to provide service in those markets in direct, so I'd say it's beyond the scope of direct in that case. His only testimony was that he was aware that the Baker market had a 5-star Google review. It's a simple question.
I'm gonna overrule the objection. I think if it's fair to say, hey, we got 5 stars, so I think it's fair to say another market. So,
Should we discuss our reviews in the other markets then as well? I'm sorry, I'm asking a question, but
Let me interject really quickly. There'll be an opportunity for redirect examination. Certainly. And anything discussed on cross-examination.
You testified that you were handling the end of Corey's employment with Jan. You were addressing, sorry, can I rephrase? You testified, I think, that you were addressing any issues that you had with Corey after's employment, is that correct?
We were looking at the other infractions and issues that were going on, yes.
And I can't remember, nor can I pronounce Lisa's last name, but Lisa had testified that it was the end of November or the beginning of December when that final written notice occurred. Would you agree with that?
I believe that was your testimony.
Would you agree that that is the time frame for that final written notice?
I believe so. I can say for sure.
And she is HR, so
Correct.
that information should be within her purview.
Absolutely.
And so were you waiting to fire Mr. Efta until you had another individual trained in this area?
We wanted to identify a candidate. We had hoped because of Corey's time with the company and certainly his local ties to the area that we attempted for training and retraining and to help him improve performance. And we came to a point where we could no longer do that.
But you had already determined you were going to fire Corey prior to him quitting.
We had made a determination that we needed to add an individual here. So whether that meant that individual taking over duties that maybe Corey was not performing well, or whatever that may be.
Do you know when it was that G&G lent the city a truck to borrow?
No,
And do you know when it was that G&G borrowed a truck from the city?
no.
You testified you have one roll-off in this service area today.
Today.
Um, And the truck that you believed was having a hydraulic pump issue addressed, would that be, do you know what unit number that was?
I did not. Like I said, I believe it's supposed to be done this week and then returned.
You believe what?
I believe this to be completed this week and returned to the market.
And the truck that's in, if you don't know the unit number, do you know whether it was the red one, the blue one, or the gray one?
I believe it might be the blue.
And I guess we only know that if.
The
we
red
were
one,
here
the
yesterday.
red one was told by Corey.
Oh, okay.
So I know it's not the red one.
Did you read the police report about the incident where Corey wrecked the truck and hit the Denbury electrical line?
I did not, only that he was cited, but I did not review it.
You said the police report says he fell asleep, but you did not read the police report.
You are correct. I was told that he fell asleep at the wheel, but I did not read the police report.
And you were told by who?
I don't recall.
Would it surprise you that his citation says nothing about him falling asleep?
I couldn't speak to what the citation of the officer wrote.
You testified that Corey had backed into an individual's trailer and G&G has paid that bill.
Yes,
Did that individual file a small claim in regard to that trailer bill?
yes,
And that was against G&G in Fallon County Justice Court?
correct.
And there was a hearing in that matter, wasn't there?
Correct.
You said there were issues with the steer tires that you were using, and you shared the concerns of Robert Wood in that regard.
We did, and it was a number of years ago, but yes.
Okay. And how long did you utilize that steer tire?
Prior to that, we probably ran that steer tire exclusively. Once those occurred, those two situations occurred, we stopped using it. I couldn't give you specific dates, but they were our preferred tire up until that time.
Have you yourself laid eyes on the residential garbage trucks unit 9 and unit 10 over the last 5 years?
Probably in the shop or something one time or another, but I've not inspected them or anything else, no.
And did a G&G employee other than Corey look at those trucks from time to time?
I believe so, yes.
And are those two trucks DOT inspected?
Yes,
And that's an annual inspection?
yes.
Were you aware that there was a gash in the floor of one of those trucks?
I'm not.
And were you aware that there were vice grips on one of the controllers, the air over hydraulics?
I am not. If a driver made that choice or potentially do that, I don't know that.
So the supervisors for Corey, other than Mr. Gary Ergens, who was locally, the other supervisors weren't here on a day-to-day basis, is that correct?
That is correct.
And would it be fair to say that some of Mr. Wood's supervisors were not located in Baker on a day-to-day?
I couldn't speak to when Bob was here originally, as I don't recall what the staffing was at that time. And then Bob was, I believe, elevated to a supervisor here.
I think his testimony that he was a manager the first time, but he wasn't a manager the second time.
Okay, that might be accurate. Yeah, I don't recall.
And my question, you testified that you scrutinized the overtime hours because you kind of don't want to pay people to lean on a broom. How would you know whether they are leaning on a broom?
It would have been brought to our attention by any management, but in the event that there's one individual here, as there has been, then we have to trust that they're being honest with us as regard to their billable, non-billable hours, and those things, because we track both, can become pretty glaring that we would potentially question if their billable hours is what we're invoicing a customer for versus what they're submitting for wages would show that.
Do you have any tracking on the trucks in the service area?
The only tracking we have is through our operational software that breadcrumbs, but does not give us live position updates. And so no to answer your question.
And did you offer customers a discount for their February statement due to some of the issues that were occurring in January?
Yes.
And was that only offered to the customers if they had their accounts current?
Yes, if they had a balance that was unpaid, then it was not offered to them, but for all their customers that were current with their bills, it was offered to them.
Were you aware that Corietta was having to go to Glendive to get replacement equipment to use to service this area?
No, I'm aware of if there were, as we talked about before, if there's equipment that we needed to potentially augment trucks in the market, that we would potentially have to swap out with other trucks in Glendive or other areas, or we would potentially bring them to him.
So was there a time when there were no working trucks in the service area?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I don't think there's any time around that.
Did Mr. Efta ever use a truck and trailer to pick up garbage?
Yes,
And your testimony is that there was a working hydraulic arm truck in Baker that he should have used instead of that?
that was your question. Your question was whether we had G&G equipment here to do the job. And my answer is yes, we did. There was nothing about mechanical. So at one point, we did have a G&G pickup truck with a gooseneck trailer due to the fact that there were repairs that couldn't be conducted here or completed, and we had to take it out of the market. And we did not want to leave anybody without service, that we utilize that trailer. And we've utilized that service before in other markets if there's an event that there's not mechanical availability to protect service.
And so Corey's supervisor, Josh, directed him that that was the equipment that he was to use.
Essentially, yes. So it's the direction would have come from Josh.
And was he given additional employees to assist him with that, since the containers are bigger than the containers, say in Glendive, that were maybe used to collect in that manner?
I'm not sure if he was sent anybody to assist with additional labor or not. I can't answer that.
Did you ever provide increased supervision for Corey during in the last year?
I believe we did. I believe we did offer additional training. We offered additional training on equipment, I think, as well as software that he was instructed to be utilizing as well.
Did anyone ever ride along with him to?
I believe so.
Who would that have been?
I can't say for sure. I believe it would have either been Josh or potentially Sean Makowitz.
Sean who?
Makowitz.
And what dates were those?
I do not know.
So you're not actually sure if that happened?
I'm not actually sure that happened.
So it seems that Mr. Efta has had some challenges as an employee. Is that fair?
Yes.
It seems as though, in spite of your opinion on giving people second chances, third and fourth and fifth chances, James, you would have had reasonable grounds to terminate Mr. Efta's employment quite some time ago. Would you agree?
Potentially.
So in December, you were aware of the issues with Mr. Efta, and in his December write-up, I think that, again, I apologize for calling her Lisa.
Lagermeyer.
Lagermeyer.
Lagermeyer. Please you can spell it.
In December, he was written up for not following dispatch, pre and post trips, not doing his pre and post trips, not reporting incidents, not completing services, and not sharing info. Lost my train of thought. I'll scratch that question, thank you. So when the truck was broke down and the only equipment available was a truck and trailer, did you ever consider calling Miles City Sanitation to assist?
No, it's very specialized equipment here, so we would not have been able to utilize their equipment. We have the same equipment like they utilize in Plano, and we could have brought and utilized that truck, which is a similar operation. You're just putting it into a mechanical vehicle rather than a trailer. So it doesn't, those aren't equipped to pick up the 4 gallon totes that are here.
The ones in Miles City or the ones in Glenbeck?
Either.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, those are both a different type of truck configuration. This is unique to either of those operations and would not have resolved the issue to do that.
No further questions.
We'll go to commission questions. Commissioner Annie Bukacek, do you have any questions?
I have no questions, sir.
I have one. 5 commissioners make up the Public Service Commission. They'll have to make a decision on this. And I think what we've seen here is there's certainly been some maintenance issues. And when we have a report that says there is no maintenance that's on the report, and then we hear testimony that there are maintenance issues, would you say in the future you'll probably fill in what maintenance costs are in the future reports so that we know?
I actually made a note to myself to look at further review of that information to ensure that that's all complete. I would agree with that.
Okay, all right. Because I have to anticipate a question a commissioner may ask me to say, hey, why didn't you ask that question? Or they may say, if I were you, I would have brought out something that needed to be brought out so we can study this. And clearly you had maintenance costs that you covered. You just didn't put it in the report. And it's fair to say you did do maintenance, right?
Yes.
No more questions, thank you. Now,
Oh, recross.
recross,
No, thank you.
redirect.
Thank you, Commissioner Panucci. Just a few questions. May I approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
Mike, I'm gonna hand you what the commission is. Evidence is exhibit 2. So that I may look at this also. May I ask questions here if Darcy can hear me?
Yes, you may.
Mike, do you see this form in front of you? Is this for reporting year 2023? And who does it say filled it out?
Richard Ronaldo.
So that wasn't you that filled it out? No. And looking at this form, Ms. Wassman was asking you about your fuel and vehicle parts expenses being left blank. See that?
I do.
Do you see another line that says other operating supplies and expenses?
Yes.
Does that appear accurate to operating expenses for G&G as a company?
I would believe so, yes.
Is it possible that the accounting software you utilized doesn't track exactly to the PSC's form?
Potentially, yes.
Would it surprise you to know that Miles City Sanitation did not have 2 years of annual reports on the PSC's website when it was checked last week?
That was my understanding as well, yes.
Would it surprise you to learn that Miles City was able to produce those reports itself?
No. Rapid operation.
Ms. Wassman brought up your review star in the Dickinson market on
Yes.
Google. Does receiving a bad review cause G&G to investigate whether there's been bad customer service?
Yes,
Or-
and we actually monitor our Google reviews as well on a regular basis and very closely monitor our digital marketing and that sort. So any issues like that are brought to our attention, we address immediately.
And so had anyone given you a bad review on the Baker operation, put a 1-star review in for Baker, would G&G have addressed that?
Absolutely. Yeah, we are very customer centric in how we review those things.
So just to clarify, Ms. Wassman asked you some questions about Mr. EFTA and his leading the company. He was given what Ms. Plagmeyer referred to as a final warning or final written reprimand letter in November or December. I believe Ms. Plagmeyer testified that that was a last chance. Is that fair?
Yes,
And so is it company policy that if you do not see improvement on that last chance, then the company starts to look to termination and alternatives?
we look to termination and or alternatives, which we did here.
Ms. Wassman implied that G&G may have had grounds to terminate Mr. Efta sooner.
Yes,
Did Mr. Efta have personal issues that you felt bad for?
yes,
Did you want to help Mr. Efta?
we did. We supported him the best we could, but yes, he had a number of personal issues that are for him to disclose and discuss, but yes, we did.
Ms. Efta asked about the period G&G used a truck and trailer to ensure that service was not missed. Do you recall those questions?
Yep.
How many weeks did that truck and trailer get used?
May I interject? I believe you said Miss After, did you mean Miss Wassman?
Yes, I apologize.
I thought it, I was just gonna let it go.
I'm really glad you're here for details.
Clarity of the record. Proceed.
Ms. Wassman asked you
I
a
prefer
question regarding use of a truck and trailer to service. How long was that truck and trailer used?
2 consecutive Wednesdays. So the first Wednesday, the truck issues occurred, and by the time we get it repaired in the shop, we had to do the same the following Wednesday again, and then back in service.
You were here earlier when Robin Kwiecki, I'm pronouncing his name correctly, testified. He's the principal for Southeast Trash. You recall that?
Yes,
And I believe it was his testimony that he provides service via 400-gallon totes for commercial and 95-gallon totes for residential. Is that what you recall of his testimony?
I do, yes.
And it was my recollection that he testified that he had acquired a garbage truck 3 years ago
Correct,
and that he'd had his business for 7 years total.
correct,
And that prior to his garbage truck, he used a truck and trailer to empty containers.
yes,
So that would be 4 years.
yes,
And it was my recollection that Mr. Kwiecki testified that he had had no complaints with his services. Is that what your recollection is too?
that's my understanding, yes.
Nothing further, thank you.
Okay, I'm sure that you're gonna temporarily excuse them, but I'll ask temporary or permanent excuse.
Temporary,
Okay,
please.
thank you. You may go, sir. And you may call your next witness, Ms. Patterson.
I will do my best, but I think I'm going to murder his name. Sean?
This is sort of the title
Sean, have you been sworn in?
Yes, I have.
Thank you, sir. You may be seated. Witness, Mrs. Patterson.
Thank you, Commissioner Kenoshi. Good afternoon, Sean. Since I obviously cannot pronounce your last name, may I call you Sean?
Yes,
Can you please state your name for the record?
Sean Mackwitz.
Sean, where do you work?
I work at G&G Garbage,
What is your job title at G&G?
Director of Assets and Maintenance.
What are your job duties as Director of Assets and Maintenance?
I watch over the fleet of vehicles, assets for all 6 locations. I coordinate maintenance repairs with drivers and repair shops in those areas. I watch over DOT standards, training, pre and post trip inspections, things of that nature.
And do you do that just for the Baker office or do you do that company-wide?
Company-wide.
And how long have you been in that position?
I think I started November, December of 2023.
Were you with G&G prior to that?
Yes, I've been almost 3 years, 2 years and 10 months.
What was your previous job title with G&G?
Before Director of Assets and Maintenance, I was I think it was regional manager. Basically, I had watched over 3 districts, Willis and Watford and Glendive, and then another manager watched watched over the southern districts, Dickinson, Baker, and Spearfish.
When you were regional manager, did you oversee Baker?
Rare occasions. There typically wasn't a need for me unless I was helping move equipment around, but typically I stayed north.
Okay. Was somebody else overseeing Baker?
James Desenko was watching over it until he passed away.
Do you currently oversee maintenance at G&G's Baker office?
Yes, I do.
We've had a lot of discussion about maintenance today and for the last few days. And we've talked about the G&G is currently using outside vendors to provide maintenance.
Correct.
How do you become aware of any maintenance issues with a truck in the Baker office?
So the first and easiest way for me to be aware of anything is through a pre or post-trip inspection that comes from the driver. So we have light duty vehicles, we have heavy duty semi trucks. So when it comes to the semi trucks, they're CDL drivers, and so they're held to a higher standard. They're federal. So federal regulations state that at a minimum, a CDL driver must perform a post-trip inspection on their vehicle on a daily basis. And then the following day, whoever gets in that truck must review that and to sign off on that as their pre-trip inspection. So company-wide, we go above and beyond. We have the CDL drivers do it, but we also have all drivers do it, even on a pickup truck that is not regulated under the same DOT regulations. So I review those for issues and then start coordinating for repairs based on priority and when we can get it in and where.
And how do you receive those inspections?
All of them except for one come through email, one comes through a text.
And is that for drivers across the company?
Yes.
How often are you supposed to receive those?
Daily. So morning or afternoon, some, again, CDL required post-trip. And then light duty vehicles, they can do a pre or post-trip. So I receive some in the morning and some at the end of the day.
And what's on an inspection form? Who makes that?
I created the inspection form. It follows the DOT regulations. So I have one specifically for the semi trucks, and it has items on there for the truck and if they're pulling a trailer. And then I have a separate one for the porta potty division to include the pickup and the vacuum pump system that they're on.
Do you rely on those inspection reports?
Yes, that is, where I start, and that's what I go off of. So the rules state that when you write something on a inspection report, if it is not corrected, you are required to continue putting it on there until it is corrected. So basically, if I can't get a truck in for a small repair this one day, well, the next day it'll still be on there, and then if something else got added, it would, create a staggering domino effect of the issues and address them all.
And what kind of issues is the driver supposed to note on an inspection report?
Anything. So basically, the rule of thumb is to do a check 6 on your vehicle every day. So your check 6 is you're checking all 4 sides, and then underneath and on top your 6 sides. But your lights, your brakes, your fluids, the glass, anything that can be a hazard to yourself or to others on the road.
Does G&G provide training to its employees on this form?
When the form came out for the porta potty guys, I did, just because it's new to them. For the CDL, it's actually part of your training when you go get your CDL. And part of your CDL training is also to inspect the areas of your truck and how to do a proper pre-post trip inspection on your vehicle. So for the CDL drivers, I don't really train them specifically for the form because that's part of their training that they already received.
Do drivers receive instruction on how to submit the forms?
Yes. Again, everyone does it by email except for one new employee who is texting, but he'll get trained properly to send it by email as well.
Okay. And are drivers told that it's G&G's expectation that that's turned in daily?
Yes. I work with other members, director of operations and logistics, and then facility operations managers. If I am not seeing inspections in a timely manner from drivers, occasionally someone will forget, one day, and I forgot, send it at the end of the day. But if they're going in more than a day, then we're getting on to get those turned in.
Okay. If you see an inspection report that notes an item, what's your response?
So the first thing I do, again, is prioritize. There are things that have to be corrected now. There are things that, can be corrected in the future, not a big deal. And then, again, I coordinate with director of operations and director of logistics for timing. If it's safety time sensitive, then we need to get it in sometime same day before they can go out on a route because it's unsafe. So we'll call around to a repair shop to see, number one, can we get it in now? If we can, how long is it going to be down? Can we afford to do that? Do we need to get another truck over the area, to help cover, whatever the case may be.
And so you said that's your first line of defense?
Correct.
Does G&G also have scheduled maintenance for its trucks?
Yes. So we have a program that I put together, and it's based on mainly miles, but some, months time-wise as well. But most of it is based on miles. And again, that is another thing that's important with the inspection reports that come in, is they have their daily mileage recorded on it so that I can properly track when oil changes due, when filters need change, hydraulic filters, whatever the case is.
Okay. And you said you put that together. When was it put into effect?
Probably February or March,
This year?
I think. Yeah, this year.
Okay. And did G&G handle scheduled maintenance prior to that for its trucks?
Before I came on, James DeSanko, he handled the maintenance until his passing. There was a gap between James being gone and then me taking the role. In that gap, it was on the local level of the regional managers or the supervisors in each area to kind of watch over their own equipment. And some are better at taking care of their vehicles than others. But with the regional manager, again, I was watching over the North 3 locations, and there was a guy watching over the Southern 3 locations. And so we would help, on a small scale, do the same thing, watch over the equipment in your area. So, but later it, made sense to have one sole person just watching over all the equipment. So.
Okay. Are drivers expected to do maintenance to their vehicles?
To the point that they can. Not everyone is a mechanic. Again, with CDL, it is expected that you can do basic preventive maintenance and basic maintenance on your vehicle. Every truck that is built comes with a manual, and it, in that manual it has your operating your service manual. So it can tell you exactly how to check your transmission fluid, your oil level, check and adjust your headlights so they're proper, all things of that nature, how to check your belts, your PTO shed, all these things are included in the service manual of your truck.
Did you supervise Robert Wood?
No, Robert was gone before I came onto the company.
Did you supervise Corey Efta?
For operations, I never supervised Corey. He was never my direct report. Again, James was, when I came on, James was his direct manager. And then after James, then it was, Steve Klein and then Scott, they were both here briefly for regional. And then Gary Ergens was working with him in the baker shop. He was promoted to the facility operations manager, watched over him until he left. And then Josh Tronson up in Glendive was watching over him, just because with Corey doing roll-off and garbage, Josh was the only other district that ran garbage route. So that way they could, work together on equipment and, anything that came up.
Okay. Did you work with Corey at all?
Again, he left in February. I went into the director of assets maintenance position end of 2023, so we did have a overlap there. That's when I started becoming aware of some issues that were going on with the assets in Baker. There were two garbage trucks, and one of them that he was driving, it blew out the head of the engine, and we had to kill that truck. So then he started using the other truck, and then there were a couple of electrical gremlins that we had to chase in that thing.
During the time you worked with, well, strike that. Corey testified that truck number 12 needed kingpins. He notified you and Mike about it, and it was not fixed, and that caused him to wreck. Did he notify you of any kingpins?
That is false. Again, at the time of that incident, James Desenko was over the maintenance and was his direct manager. I had nothing to do with Corey or the equipment in this area at that time. Since I've been in the director of assets and maintenance position, we've replaced kingpins on 3 trucks. If that was the case, James was mechanic for 25 years. If that was the case, I'm sure it would have been addressed. But yeah, that had nothing to do with me.
Okay. Is it your experience that G&G will fail to take necessary safety corrections?
No. So when it comes to the repairs, if it is safety, we do it. The only reason we would not repair a safety item is if the truck was not worth the investment anymore and we were going to kill the truck. If we're going to keep the truck on the road, we need to make the repairs. But yes, there have been times when the vehicle is past, it's not worth the additional investment. We've got trucks that are over 1 million miles, and some of them still run great if you maintain them. But at some point, it's just not worth the investment anymore.
For the Baker operation, Corey was the person doing the day-to-day maintenance on the vehicle?
So each driver is expected to, again, watch over vehicles. So when Corey and Gary were both working in the Baker shop, each one kind of had their own dedicated roll-off truck that they would maintain and watch over. And then Corey was the primary for running the garbage route. Gary would, again, as the facility operations manager, he would watch over Corey and to make sure that, you know, maintenance was being done. You know, that was one of the responsibilities that he had.
Okay. Do you believe Mr. EFTA adequately greased vehicles?
No. Before Corey left, I rode with him the last week that he did garbage route. And it was apparent that the truck had never been greased. Not only that, but if there were any hydraulic or oil leaks, you couldn't even see them on the truck because everything was coated in mud and dirt and had never been washed or cleaned, or you can't even look to see if you have any leaks of any kind.
And during that period, Corey was responsible for taking something in if it needed maintenance?
Say again.
At that time, was Corey responsible for taking something to the shop if it needed maintenance?
Physically driving it over or
Yes, physically.
scheduling? Yes.
And the supervisor would have had to have approved that?
Yeah, so Gary, when he was his facility operations manager, he would have put an appeal request. If he was busy, he probably would have told Corey, put it in, you know, I'm on the road, whatever the case is, send in the email. But either one could have put in appeal request. And then before I was in the position of director of assets maintenance, either Steve Klein, Scott, or Michael would have approved. But once I came in director of assets and maintenance, all PO requests go through me now. I can approve up to a certain dollar amount, and then anything beyond that, you know, Michael approves.
Based on your experience, do you believe Corey accurately noted the condition of the vehicles in his pre-trip or post-trip inspections?
No. I was not here the last 2 days of testimony. I had a medical procedure yesterday. But just from what I heard today, I looked back at the emails and the texts that Corey had shared with me for his pre and post-trip inspections. So he had a bad habit of stockpiling the inspection reports, and then he'd send a whole bunch at once. So February 2nd was the last batch that he sent me before he left, and he sent 12 at that time, ranging from January 5th through February 1st. So basically 12 to cover a month, so it's not even, you know, every day. But the allegations that I heard stating the oil leak, the hydraulic leak, a hole in the floor, all these items. Again, if an item is incorrect on the truck and it's not corrected, it is to be carried over to the next inspection report that you put in. I looked through the reports of what he had marked on them, and for the garbage truck, there were 3 items that he listed. It was that one of the taillights was not working, the hydraulic arm was hitting the hopper, and one of the cameras was not working, the one that looks down inside the hopper. That is what he had wrote on it. All the check boxes that he is supposed to be checking off as well for air brakes, horn, lights, he didn't check off any, he left everything blank. And the form that he was filling out wasn't even the G&G form that we have. He had gone on the internet and found his own form that he wanted to use. So when it came to following procedure, he was very difficult.
Does his failure to follow procedure make it difficult to know what maintenance the truck might need?
Well, yes. So basically, unless I was going there in person and getting in the truck to see what was going on, the items were not being told to us. And then couldn't be corrected. And he had a bad habit of garbage route, for the rural garbage route that was typically on Wednesdays, one day a week. The other days of the week, he would do roll off. But there are often times where he would wait until Wednesday morning, the morning on the route, to say, oh, truck needs tires, truck needs oil, truck needs all of this. Well, it's been sitting for the last week. Why didn't we do this before? Why are we? So I didn't know if it was just not wanting to do the work. I don't know, but it happened all too often.
Corey testified that the number 9 truck, which was the backup truck, was what he drove, and it had a gash in the collection compartment.
So I cannot speak to that. Physically, I have not been inside Unit 9. When I came into this position, he was driving it shortly, and then the head cracked and the oil, that's when we killed the truck. So that truck is currently at J.A. Miller. So I have not been able to see that truck. So if there is a hold, I'm not aware, but we had a welder based at that yard, and we could have easily welded. There's a welder at that shop, and Gary could weld. He was welding. So if there was a hole in the floor of that truck, it could have been fixed at any time.
Did Mr. Efton note a gash in the floor on any pre-inspection reports or post-inspection reports?
I did not find any pre or post trip inspection reports for Unit 9 from him at all.
Had he turned in an inspection report that noted a gash in the collection compartment, would that be something that would be addressed quickly?
Oh yeah, because you never know what is going into your hopper. I mean, we collect all sorts of things, and there's one resident of Baker who skins little, I don't know, they look like squirrels. He skins them and throws all the carcasses in. And there's another that I swear she's got 30 cats, and another guy that has all these ashes and stuff. So you never know. So if we had known, again, we could have easily patched it in house right there at that shop. So
did Corey ever communicate that to you?
no, today is the first time I've ever heard of a hole in the floor or anything.
Did you yourself fix the arm on a truck in the Baker office?
Unit 10, we started having some issues with it. I'll describe it as an electrical gremlin, only because it seemed to go from one system to another. Out of all the trucks that we have in the company, the garbage trucks are the most complicated. I say that because they have the most power systems on it. So a light duty porta potty truck is just a pickup truck. Okay, so it's just mechanical. And then a roll off is one step above. You have the mechanical and you have hydraulic. And then you get to the garbage truck, you have electric over air over hydraulic systems. So when it comes to not maintaining, not taking care of it, something can grow into something devastating and quickly. But there was an issue that we were having with the arm where it was not wanting to respond properly. And sometimes it wouldn't grab the can or it wouldn't lift up all the way. Corey described it as a low power mode. And so I spent some time chasing that. We eventually got the arm to work and changed out some solenoids for the hydraulic system.
Change out what?
Solenoids, SOLENOID. When I was up there working on the arm, that's when I got to spend quality time with that garbage truck and see some of the things that Corey had been doing with it. And I started to question what he had done. One of the items that was brought up in today's testimony was a sensor that wasn't plugged on the truck, which he did himself, he told me. And because he couldn't get it to work right, he hadn't told anyone, he was just living with it. Another item also brought up today was a pair of pliers that he told me he installed because someone told him to. He didn't know why, he didn't know what it did. It was on one of the air discharge lines coming from the hydraulic manifold.
When you say someone told him to do that, is supervisor?
No, when I asked him, what he told me was that, again, it was brought up earlier in testimony that the G&G garbage route truck was similar to the same garbage route trucks that the city of Baker had. So Corey said that one of the technicians who had come into town to work on the Baker city garbage trucks, for our area in Montana, for those technicians, they're based out of Seattle, Washington. So they don't come often. But apparently one was in town working on one of the city of Baker's trucks. I don't know how Corey knew about it, but he had talked to him about some of the items he had noticed with the G&G truck. And Corey said that that technician was the one that told him to put the pliers on that exhaust airline. And he said he didn't know why, but to put it on and leave it on.
So that wasn't an instruction that came from G&G.
Not from G&G, no.
He didn't seek approval from G&G for doing that.
No, and after Corey left, I removed the pliers, and the truck didn't blow up, so, yeah.
Is that truck still in service?
Right now, the truck is sitting, the arm, all of that, the truck itself is fine. The packer, the hydraulic cylinder for the packer is just giving a fit. It'll go backwards, it's not going forward right now.
Do you have that at a shop for repair?
No. We have unit 20, the roll-off truck, the blue one, as everyone's calling it. That is currently with my repair shop in Glendive, specialized in hydraulics. So I try not to overwhelm them, just give them one at a time. So they're working on that one now, which can be done Friday or Monday.
But there's another garbage truck in service for the routes right now?
Yes. Which today is Wednesday, so I'm sure if there were issues, someone in here would be telling us right today.
Did you hear Mike testify earlier regarding the maintenance money spent for the Baker operation?
Yes, I did. His numbers were inaccurate. So for 2023, for the Baker market, we spent $40,381.31.
Can you repeat that?
Yes, $40,381.30.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Fuel was $49,000, $895.59.
Would it be fair to say you looked at books more recently than Mike?
I like to have my figures in order. Everything is numbers. So, when we, every year, we set a budget. We have 6 locations, and Michael had, touched briefly, we have trucks that we try to cycle out each year, just the same as Kelly talked about, and so we got ones that it's no longer, worth it to put money into. So you have to plan, your CapEx to replace these assets. But with the budget, there's, you said, okay, we're gonna have a certain percent of the gross revenue is gonna be, fuel, 8%, and so it's the same thing with repair costs. So typically, we're 5 to 8% of the overall revenue per market for doing repairs. For Baker, last year, we were about 11%, so closer to 12%.
Does that tell you that G&G is not doing repairs?
No, it tells me that we're having to do more repairs in the Baker market than others. And again, looking at the equipment after Corey left, it was apparent that it was not being taken care of. And that also in with, there's not a lot of repair shops available in Baker for us to go to, especially if you have a major repair or if you need to get in right away. So sometimes we have to take it to another market, like Glendive for some specialized stuff. So all of that adds to it.
After Corey left, did you inspect the shop here?
Yes. I started trying to organize it myself just because I couldn't find anything. The shop was, it was highly disorganized, and the cab of unit 20, when I opened that up, I actually took a picture because it was so bad. There was trash, food containers, and there was all sorts of loose tools that in any accident would just fly around and hurt somebody. So I actually took a picture of it and put it in a PowerPoint presentation for our January kickoff meeting that we did I put it in as a safety topic for reminding all the guys of proper care of their equipment.
Did you notice anything else at the shop?
Just a mess.
Do you have issues with the shop computer after Corey left?
Oh, I heard something. I don't remember what I heard. I wasn't involved in that, so I don't remember if someone tried to pass her too many times.
Objection. I would say that's hearsay. He said he heard, he doesn't know.
Stay.
Corey testified he did his work for G&G to the best of his abilities. Do you think that's true based on what you saw of his maintenance and his logs?
No, again, the pre and post trip inspections as a DOT requirement, he was not even meeting the minimum requirement there. When he would send them all in, it could be coincidence, but they're all the exact same color of pen every time he sends a batch. Again, I can't say that he did them all every day or he did them all at once and sent them in. I don't know. But it seems like when Gary Ergens was there, that there weren't as many issues. Maybe Corey is just the type that needs direct supervision, someone there with him more.
Corey quit in January of this year, is that correct?
He gave his notice, in January of this year.
Were you involved with training the new driver that was hired?
Yes, not at first. So when Wes first came on board, he was up in Glendive training with Josh, and his team up there. And so he learned on their garbage trucks up there and roll-off truck. And then when Wes came down to Baker after Corey had left, then I did spend time with Wes in Baker. He and I went on the garbage route together for, I think, 3 weeks. So 3 days, one day a week.
Did the equipment work on the routes those 3 days?
Yes.
Do you have confidence in Wes as a driver based on your driving with him?
Oh, absolutely. He hasn't had, I mean, he's been here since February. He hasn't had any accidents, incidents of any kind that I'm aware of. I haven't had to go to court to, defend him backing into an enclosed trailer, so.
Does the new driver Wes turn in his pre-check and post-check logs timely?
Every day.
Does he note any issues that come up?
Yes,
Do you make sure those issues are addressed?
yes. So the one that I kind of put off, a little bit is, we're coming in summer, so everyone's number one is air conditioning doesn't work strong enough, so that I can't always get in right away, but yeah.
But you are getting that in?
Yes.
Does the new driver Wes perform appropriate maintenance for a driver under G&G standards?
Yes, he does. Since Gary left, I think it's the first time that we've actually purchased grease for the shop in Baker.
We talked about the compactor that you're waiting to take up to Glendive. Have you had other maintenance issues come up this year?
In Baker?
Yes, Baker.
Yeah, the unit 20 that's currently up in Glendive, Wes was driving that as a roll-off truck. It's up there because he was having not a loss of hydraulic power, but it was diminished. It wasn't at full power. So that's why that one was up there right now.
Did he notify you of that?
Yes. Yep. He noticed that it was starting to get weaker. He checked out the truck. He didn't see any leaks. He cleaned everything up. Still didn't see any leaks. And so from there, we started to figure out what it was, and it was the hydraulic pump itself that had gone bad.
Has the new driver expressed that there are issues you're not addressing?
If he has addressed issues that we're not addressing, he has not addressed that with me.
Has he told you that there are issues that you're failing to address?
No.
Nothing further. Thank you, Sean.
Lawrence,
Could we have a break?
Walkman,
Excuse me. Could we take a break?
yes, let's do it. Is, I can't see it. Time is 3:42, we're off the record. Let's do statements. Time is 3:52. We'll go back on the record. Ms. Wasman, you are open for cross-examination. at this
Thank you.
point.
Good afternoon, Mr. Makowitz.
Backwards.
Yep, just the way, yep, M.A.C. Kowitz.
If I understood your testimony correctly, the position of Director of Maintenance and Assets, you began at the end of November of 2023?
November, December, yeah, somewhere around there for Director of Assets and Maintenance, yes.
And was it your testimony that since, strike that, during your time as Director of Maintenance and Assets, how long was truck number 9 in service?
It was very, very briefly. Probably only a matter of weeks, probably.
And was that truck number 9 taken for repairs in November?
I looked up while I was sitting and I saw December for an estimate on it from Jay. So December 6th, so it would have been in November, right at the beginning of December that it would have gone there.
What's the name of the shop?
J.A. Miller.
They gave you an estimate on December 6th that would have been taken into the shop a little before that.
Correct.
And did they keep it in the shop and then send you the estimate?
Yeah, the truck is still there right now. But yeah, they had discovered that the head on the motor was cracked. And the oil was basically just pouring out of it. So.
And had J.A. Miller worked on a previous truck for J&G?
We had taken one of the roll-off trucks there before that. I think it was unit. Might have been unit 20. There was something going with the pusher axle. Was not able to activate. Wasn't able to go down. There was something going on with the air. So we took it over there. That was our first time trying out J.A. Miller.
And what color was truck number 20?
20 is blue.
And were they able to fix that issue in the blue truck?
Yes.
And do you know whether they provided an invoice for that blue truck?
Yeah, they would.
And do you know whether that invoice was paid?
That one would have been paid, yes.
And then truck number 9 was taken there at the end of, with the head was cracked.
Yes.
And did you request that they do some repairs on that truck?
No, Corey did. Corey had asked them to, he had said that it was approved. And then we canceled it. Luckily, they had not taken, they had not received parts yet. They were able to cancel it before it shipped out. But I want to say the estimate for that one was well over $8,000, I believe, to fix that one. So again, that truck was supposed to be the backup truck. It had been getting used as the primary because Corey liked it better. But yeah, so it was not worth it for us to put the money into the truck.
So when you testified that you were not able to find any pre or post trip reports for unit number 9, it was only in service for a couple of weeks at the most.
Correct. For when I came on with the position for director of estimating.
Was there anyone else from G&G that was looking at these trucks that were servicing the Baker area?
The last person would have been James DeSenko to actually look at the trucks there and pay attention to them. Steve and Scott, when they were in their positions for regional, they would not have looked at the truck itself.
And when did Mr. DeSenko
Pass.
Yeah.
January of 2023.
And were the trucks in this service area making it to Rolling Rubber or wherever for their maintenance, expected maintenance?
They were, again, when Gary Ergens was there, he did help watch for that. So I should correct. After James, Gary did, look at the trucks more of a daily basis since he was based in Baker. When I came into the position, one of the first things I did was check to see where we were with all of the annual inspections on the entire fleet. So Rolling Rubber had done the annuals on the Baker trucks in August, September was when they had done all of them there. So at that point, everything was DOT safe, good condition.
And that was August, September of 2023?
2023, correct.
And when they did their annual inspection, did you ask them to make any recommendations for other issues that didn't interfere with DOT certification, but did they make any?
Again, the time that they did those, I wasn't in my position at the time. So I was basically creating a baseline for the entire fleet when I requested those. So at that time, there was nothing noted on either of them from Rolling Rubber for me to worry about. So at that point, I was basically just creating the baseline and based on the annuals, and then working from the daily pre and post trip inspections.
So your testimony a little bit ago was that when employees don't turn in their pre or post inspection reports, that you are getting on them to get them turned in.
Correct.
And did you do that with Corey?
Yes, it was a constant thing. So when I was in the position, he was reporting directly to Josh Tronson. And it was a very constant trying to get the inspection reports from him.
And so was Josh trying to get those reports from him, or were you? I'm not understanding your time.
Yeah, so I always go to their supervisor. That way the supervisor's in the loop, and I let the supervisor address them directly. So I would address Josh, Josh would address with Corey.
And is your testimony limited to the end of November that you were doing this?
That's when I would have come in and started paying attention to it, basically.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when you were the regional manager, you were looking at pre and post inspection reports from your crew down in Williston, Wofford, Glendive.
But yes.
Yeah, I don't know. And Josh would have been then dealing with Mr. Efta and his pre and post inspection reports.
Not at that time, because at that time Gary was still in Baker.
Okay, can you tell me how
August.
long Gary worked?
Gary, yeah, so I don't remember when we started the facility operation manager position, but in my head, if you think when James passed January, and then Gary left, I believe, August of 2023. So if we just, for argument's sake, say that Gary was his supervisor from February to August, something along those lines.
And then Gary quit in August of 2023?
I believe it was August 2023.
How long have these pre and post inspection reports been required?
Again, for Corey's position, they are federally regulated, so they've always been required.
When is your kickoff meeting? When was your kickoff meeting in 2023?
It's always the first Friday of the year. So I know for this year it was January 7th. Last year was probably the 6th, 7th, or 8th, somewhere around.
And Corey quit in February, is that correct?
Yes.
And you testified that you took a picture of his truck after he quit, is that
No.
correct?
No, I took the picture before because I used it in the PowerPoint presentation. I noticed the condition of the rest of the shop after he left, and again, clean up the trucks after he left. But no, I did take a picture before he left.
So when did you take this picture?
It was probably just a week or two before the kickoff meeting, so end of December of 2023.
And what were you doing in the Baker area then?
Looking at equipment.
Oh, okay. Did you report the state of the equipment to anyone at G&G?
Yes, I believe it was either an email or a group text, I can't recall, but it would have been to Josh Tronson, I believe Michael, and possibly Brad Jager.
Did you talk to Corey about his truck at that time?
No, I did not.
And was Corey written up for the truck at the end of December?
That I do not know. Again, I address with their supervisors. I don't typically have anything to do with write-ups for the drivers themselves.
And did you pass along all of the times when he did not provide pre or post logs?
Probably not every time. That I have a full-time job I need to do, so I wouldn't have had time for all.
Are you familiar with the way that Corey typically filled out his pre or post trip logs? Are you familiar with discretion? Are you familiar with the way that Corey filled out any pre or post trip logs prior to November of 2023 when you have this new position?
No, I don't think I saw any from previous.
And the entire time that Wes has been hauling the residential route, has he done that with a working truck with a hydraulic arm?
I think there may have been one Wednesday where he had to hand pick the garbage out.
Were you with him?
Yes. Well, sorry. Let me correct that. The arm was working, but the arm, the grabber was not holding the can tight enough. We were needing to adjust it. So instead of dealing with that, we were picking the bags out that day instead of having cans get thrown in and damaged. So yeah, so the arm itself was working, but the grabbers were not working properly that day. So.
And Corey testified that he talked to you about the loss of hydraulics on that. Not sure which truck it was. Did you and he have a conversation about the kind of the loss of hydraulics?
Again, he probably described to this group as a low power mode. And so that's when he had told me about that, that's when he and I started trying to diagnose what was going on with the truck. And again, it seemed that that electrical gremlin, as I call it, started in the arm.
And did you provide him with any workaround to get it to work properly?
It would come and go. And so when we were first working with it, I think we would sometimes if you would rev up the engine, sometimes it seemed like it would help it work for a little bit. It was just hit and miss when it would work or not. So it was hard to pinpoint, hey, if when it happens, just do this, because again, it was what I now know was quick. So we had tried multiple things, but again, that's why for 2 weeks that truck. So.
I don't have any additional questions.
We'll go to commissioner questions. Commissioner Vukacek, any questions? Okay.
No
we have-
questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Vukacek. Do you have any questions? Okay.
No questions.
I have. I heard testimony that the truck was never, ever, ever greased. Does that sound accurate?
Yes.
As a public service commissioner, safe, reliable, and affordable, something I committed to when I took the position. Some grease zerks and greasing areas would be connected to steering, such as tie rods, kingpin, ball joint. Would you say not ever, ever, ever greasing those parts would be public safety issue?
Absolutely, and I should clarify, when I was talking about the greasing for the garbage truck, I should clarify that I'm talking about the body itself versus the steering on the truck itself. The arm, the compactor, the gate, the door, all of those items that are supposed to be greased every 40 hours or every week for that. When it would go in for the service at Rolling Rubber, part of that service does include greasing of the truck, steering, kingpins, all of that part there. They, however, for their service, do not grease the body itself. So,
Rolling Rubber under what I understand, testimony is kind of new. Before that, they kind of did that themselves. So it looks like G&G handled maintenance before Rolling Rubber. Do you think the steering got greased at that time? Were you there during?
I was not there that time. It would only be speculation. You know, I can't honestly say if it was or was not.
Testimony sometimes could be misleading. I got the feeling that the vice grips being used to control either a high pressure line or a low pressure line, whether it be air or oil filled, seems quite dangerous to me. And the testimony fails to tell us, was this a one-day event or were the vice grips being used over several months or days? What do you have? Do you have information on that?
Again, from when I noticed it and then when I talked to Corey, I believe that they had been there for a while. But again, as soon as he was gone, I could never figure out why they were on there. I took them off, tested, put them back on, tested, never found any change. And again, it was an air exhaust from the manifold. So it was not controlling to say, okay, this arm is getting too much air, so we need to slow it down. That was not the case. So I have no idea why it was ever put on, but obviously it was not necessary. But it seemed like it was on for a while.
You have operations of the truck, driving the truck, air and hydraulics. Then you have air and hydraulic operations that run the dump truck portion. You watch on YouTube when a dump truck fails. Sometimes it can take the container, throw it completely over the truck into someone's yard. If it's full of garbage, it can weigh several hundred pounds, and if someone's there, it could kill them.
Yes.
Removing a sensor, using a pair of vice grips to control pressure, seems awfully dangerous to me. Seems like I'd report that to management to say, this person can't operate this truck again. Vice grips and removing sensors, it seems like someone could get harmed. Was that a call that you made to say, look, this is pretty serious? Or would we let them continue to use the vice grips and remove the sensor? What do you remember about that?
So the sensor itself, what it did was the compactor has two modes. So you have a packer and then an eject. It uses the same hydraulic system. So that sensor, what it did was when you would dump one or two cans in, you'd hit, okay, pack it. So it comes in the hopper and then your packing wall goes, and it goes about 4 feet. And it just, pushes it into the body itself in the back. And then if you hold the eject button, then that has that same hydraulic wall go all the way back to push everything out the back of the truck at the landfill. So that sensor, what it was doing was it was stopping so that would only go the 4 feet and then it would come back. So you couldn't eject at the landfill. So what Corey was doing was when he needed to push it more, he'd go unplug that sensor so that he could push more. He'd retract back, go plug the sensor back in. And yeah, it was myself that said, you know, that's all it's doing. Why are you getting out every 3 stops to unplug and then plug? We don't need that, you know, there, because we're just able to manually go forward and back. So it was my decision to unplug that sensor at the time, just because from my point of view on that, for that system, it was not a safety concern. There are plenty of other sensors on there that I would absolutely agree could make things very dangerous, especially if you're not paying attention.
Well, thank you for clarifying. Truck number 12 was the red truck, is that correct?
Correct.
There was testimony other than Corey saying the steering column was completely loose and had tremendous play in it. Did you hear that testimony?
No, I was only here today. So if that was one of the other previous days, I did not hear that.
May have been before Corey was there, but the other driver had complained about a leaky rear seal. And I certainly understand that the leaky rear seal isn't that serious if the leak is very, very slow leak. But a loose steering column seems like that's a public safety issue. This is the same truck that he lost control of. And what was interesting is there was testimony that he fell asleep to the wheel. Then there was testimony that that wasn't in the report at all. But a person has to ask himself, maybe it was connected to a steering column that was completely loose, testified by somebody other than him. Corey, did you ever hear of a loose steering column in truck number 12 already?
Again, I was not in the position of, you know, watching over the assets at that time. So I was not privy to any of the inspection reports that came at that time for that vehicle. I saw the photos of the incident where when it came off the road, it launched 70 feet before it touched ground. And then it drove 1,200 feet in the field, very straight. If it was the steering that was loose, as soon as it hit the ground, I don't think you could have kept the steering straight if that was the case. My opinion on that. I think that if that was the case, it would have gone sideways one way or the other, and you probably would have had a very good chance of rolling.
Corey's sworn testimony is that there was a warning, maintenance, a worn out kingpin, or possibly a tie rod, and he heard a pop before he lost control. So going by sworn testimony, you have to pay attention to that. And so that's a concern for sure. No more questions, thank you. Now there may be, first will be Mrs. Wasman. Recross.
Just a couple of questions. Mostly because I don't understand trucks. You testified that it appeared, strike that. When you were just talking about greasing of the garbage truck, the body itself,
Yes,
and then the greasing of some other parts.
yes,
Is that the same grease or different grease?
it's the same grease.
And you had, it was your testimony that looking at the equipment and in the shop, it looked like they had, that branch or in that area had never purchased any grease.
They may have had a stockpile, but from when Gary left, there was definitely a decline in the condition of the assets there.
And so you're saying, you're implying that Corey knew how to grease the important stuff, but the body itself doesn't matter as much?
It does, and I'm stating that I don't know that Corey did grease them himself. For all I know, Gary could have been greasing the truck while he was there. And again, when the truck would go in for periodic service, rolling rubber, part of that service was to grease the truck, the frame itself. But no one had touched the body, the arm, the compactor, any of that stuff.
And from your review of the maintenance records, and any rolling rubber, invoices that you received, did it appear that those maintenance trips to rolling rubber were being done
Yes,
and as scheduled, or as
not as needed. Corey actually, before I came to the position, Corey was actually getting more service done than what was required. So he would do an average of 6,000 to 8,000 miles a month on a roll-off truck in Baker. And for a time, he was taking it in monthly to rolling rubber for service, which typically we do 30,000 to 35,000 miles in between for a semi truck.
no further questions.
Ms. Pappas, redirect.
Thank you, Commissioner Panucci. So just to clarify a few things here. After the supervisor, Josh, or what was the supervisor who's passed it?
Josh Tronson.
After Josh passed,
Oh, sorry, James DeSenko.
James DeSanko passed in January of 2023. Gary oversaw the shop until August of 2023. And from August or September until November of 2023, Corey was in charge of overseeing the shop until you came on?
No, after Gary left, then Josh Tronson he absorbed Corey and Baker under the Glendale operation for supervision. And to this day, Josh still supervises the.
But to clarify, Corey didn't have anyone in the shop with him.
Corey did not have another driver in the shop with him. For a short time, we had a welder / painter working in the Baker shop at the same time that Corey was there. She actually left because she claimed a hostile work environment. Dealing with Corey there. She would repair the roll-off bins, she would weld, fabricate, paint them. But she and Corey had to work as a team, move bins in and out of the shop for her to work on. And we had addressed it several times with Corey, where she had asked for him to bring bins in the morning so she could work on them throughout the day, and he would refuse and say, no, I gotta go to eat Palaco or beach, whatever, do this. You'll have to wait till the end of the day. So she'd go home because there was nothing for her to work on, and then she'd come back at the end of the day, pull the bin in. So then she'd have to come after hours or on weekends to do the work and make up her hours. He'd leave the skid steer with the arms all the way up, claiming that it was took up less room that way, but major OSHA violation, and then she also couldn't use it. That got addressed twice with Corey, and he claimed it took up less space. And then Corey's kids came into the office and they would eat her lunch. So, yeah, she finally quit.
So at the time Gary left in August of 2023, September is when you had the last DOT inspection on the vehicles at the Baker shop.
Yeah, August, September, that time, yes,
And they passed that inspection at that time. So
correct,
no safety issues at that time.
correct.
Ms. Wasden asked you if you spoke to Corey directly about the pre and post inspection reports, or if you went to Josh, and you explained that you went to Josh.
Correct.
From the period you started at the end of November in your current position until the end of January, did Corey's reporting improve over that time?
No. Again, typically it was batches instead of daily as the other drivers do.
You also discussed with Ms. Wasman the electrical gremlin in the arm, correct?
Yes.
Is it typically difficult to diagnose electrical issues?
Yes, that is one of the most difficult to figure out, even for seasoned repair shops. It is the most difficult.
And during the 2 weeks, the 2 days of garbage routes that G&G used a truck and trailer, was that actively being worked on, that electrical gremlin issue?
Except for those 2 days. Well, I take it back because I wasn't with Corey when he was doing those, so I was working on the truck myself during that time to get it back up. So yes, actively I was every day in Baker working on it.
Thank you very much for your time, Sean. Nothing further.
Okay, thank you. Start here. Temporarily or permanently, excuse me. Would you like to call any other witness?
Rest at this point. Thank you. Commissioner.
Southwest garbage, Mrs. Wasman. Southeast, I'm sorry. Southeast garbage, Mrs. Wasman. You may proceed with the rebuttal case.
Thank you. Could I just take, I know we don't have much time and I don't want to keep anybody past 5. I think it will be very quick if I do call a couple witnesses, but could I take a 10-minute break? 8 minutes?
Let's do 4:40.
Okay.
This was been based, currently, how much time do you expect to do the rec?
I would anticipate 5 minutes for maybe 2 witnesses. Maybe 5 minutes each, but at most.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Let's go off the record, 4:42. 4:30. Can't see. And we'll return at 4:40. Okay, it's 4:42. We'll get back on the record. Ms. Wasman, you may call your rebuttal witness. Is that correct?
Yes, I would call Alyssa Miller.
Have you sworn in?
No.
I want you to raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You may be seated. Welcome, your witness.
Thank you. Could you state your name
Alyssa Miller.
and what is your occupation?
I own J.E. Miller Trucking LLC, and a DBA of J.E. Miller Truck Repair.
And where do you live?
262 Cabin Creek Road in Baker.
Did J.E. Miller Truck Repair do any truck repairs for G&G Garbage?
Yes.
And when did they do those truck repairs?
A few different times, in October and November of 2023.
And do you know for what types of trucks did they bring in?
I'm gonna object to this testimony as beyond the scope of the cross-examination. While Ms. Wassman did pursue this line of questioning in her cross-examination of the protestant's case in chief, it was not brought up in our case in chief, and therefore I don't think it's a proper subject for rebuttal testimony.
I actually asked Sean about taking the trucks into repairs for J.A. Miller. He testified Corey requested the repairs. He had, I think that estimated they'd taken the trucks there before and the truck was fixed and paid for. So I think I'm rebutting that testimony that Sean just gave.
She's not rebutting the testimony offered by protestants, she's rebutting the testimony she elicited in cross-examination.
I thought it was just the testimony of the witness, rebutting the testimony of the witness.
I would further offer that any testimony, if this is going to questions of billing, isn't relevant to the proceedings before the commission.
So there's two things that you mentioned, correct? Now,
Certainly.
you mentioned relevance of just the billing in particular, but you also suggested that the entire testimony is beyond the scope.
It's beyond the scope of what was offered in protestant's case in chief. Ms. Wassman herself elicited that testimony by her admission in her cross-examination. It wasn't testimony that the protestants offered to support their case in chief.
I'll take these in parts since there's two parts.
I
Yep.
haven't been able to address the relevance.
Feel free to adjust your own.
It is relevant if they are using local service operations to repair their equipment and then not paying their bill, so they can't release equipment.
So they can't what?
Release equipment. And it goes to whether they can and will provide the service if they're not paying their repair bills locally.
Do you like a response?
I don't think it goes at all to whether they can provide the service. Mr. Wassman also solicited testimony from Mr. Desmond on whether there was, whether he had paid billing. That again wasn't offered for protestants by their case in chief. And
Again, what? You're gonna have to speak
it
up.
wasn't offered by protestants in their case in chief. And again, Mr. Desmond testified that the matter was subject to dispute and potentially, and he wasn't at liberty to discuss it.
Gonna overrule the initial objection it's not within the scope. However, also the commission will sustain the relevancy of specifically the payment of billing in this instance. I believe there was testimony about, you know, repair shops and everything else that was within the scope of the testimony. However, there was never a discussion of payments. Or, sorry, there is the relevancy of the payments
Okay.
to Miller, correct?
J.A. Miller.
J.A.
truck
Miller.
repair.
Let's continue.
Okay. If I could just have.
But I'm just curious, is she on this one?
I don't have any additional questions. Thank you.
You have no pros. Would you like to permanently or temporarily excuse the witness?
Permanently is fine.
Thank you.
No, I don't.
Ms. Wasman, your next witness,
I have no additional witnesses.
you rest?
Yeah.
Do the parties wish to present a brief closing statement? Southeast Garbage? Would you like to go first?
On the same page. Okay, since it is close to 5 o'clock and I believe that we have an agreement as to expected next steps, I would waive a closing statement as long as protestants do.
So you agree to waive a closing statement?
We're in accord with that.
I want to make sure before I forget, is there any public comment?
Hold on.
Knew there was gonna be none. Just didn't want to forget. Okay, the evidentiary hearing is now closed and the public comment period is again open. Just didn't want to- Okay, I will next ask for final public comment. Seeing none. Oh, you have public comment?
Yeah.
Please.
Also, part of my position, not only at J.A. Miller Truck Repair, which is true that they do owe us money for some repairs, which is in different proceedings. But I'm also the Chamber of Commerce president, and have been on the Chamber of Commerce for almost 10 years. I will say, like, as a community events, we also take on youth activities and all in a rec department type of way. G&G Garbage, since they have been part of that, the current owners, they have not contributed in any way to any community events or to our youth activities, where F&D Oilfield and also just their workers and the people that own that, they have volunteered for us and then also gave money towards our youth activities. And so I think that's a relevant thing in this, that they're part of our community. And they care about everybody here, and they care that our community still thrives, no matter if they're paying local businesses or their community, or they're supporting our community events.
That's what public comment's all about. Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Yes, sir.
Yes, I'd like to say that in response to that, we have donated. And when the tornado came through town, we donated resources, bids, time, and we donate for the annual cleanup day as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Well, thank you for that public comment. I encourage more of that. Is there any public comment online?
No, there's not.
Seeing none. We'll now move off the record and move into scheduling conference.
Before we move off the record completely, I believe the parties may have, do the parties already have a agreement to scheduling in terms of post-hearing?
Ms. Wassman and I had discussed, and I believe what we had discussed was a proposal for simultaneous proposed findings to the commission to be submitted. We had discussed 30 days after the transcript is provided by Darcy, knowing that that may take her some time.
Is that sufficient, fits within the commission's timeline? I would agree with that, 30 days after the transcript is.
Perfect. As long as there's agreement by the parties, the parties will file a proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law with the commission no later than 30 days after receiving the transcript of this hearing from the court reporter.
For the record, the time is now 4:54 and the date is May 22nd, 2024. This hearing is adjourned.